A very good evening to you. Welcome to the Fourth Estate. My name is Alan Kasuja, and today my guests include, to start with, on the very left is Mrs. Alice Elasso, who is the strong woman, or various people describe her as the strongest woman in FDC. She's the General Secretary of that party and a Member of Parliament who articulates various issues on behalf of our party. And then, of course, Chris Obore, who my friend Frank Tumwebaze here says is Majorito, which means that you're a Muteso, only because if you are Mugisha...
No. He's a Muteso because he disappeared from the mountains to disappear from the circumcision ceremony.
There you have it. But he's also...
Don't mind him.
He's also the investigations editor at the Daily Monitor. Nice to have you on, Chris.
Thank
and of
you.
course, Frank Tumwebaze, Member of Parliament. Great to have you. How is Chiba, the county?
Thank you so much. We are okay.
Yeah. And of course, we've got Angelo Izama, a scholar, a fellow Stanford, all these universities in the world. Great to have you here. Socrates, that's what you call it. Interesting.
But Ibal is not okay.
Why is it okay?
Elephantiasis is still killing people.
Well, what's this issue with elephantiasis that he keeps bringing up?
Elephantiasis is a disease. So, but
in your constituency,
he brings it up in a wrong context.
No.
So teams are up there. They are trying their best to make sure that it is contained.
No,
But the other day he was bringing it as an issue intended to suppress the debate we had, to divert me to speak as if I'm suffering from elephantiasis myself.
No, I'm saying, as a leader, he had failed to help his own people.
Okay.
Now
He
here,
didn't even know they have elephantiasis.
now here.
some people say the same about nodding disease in the north.
No, at least there the Institute of Northern Uganda is active. Anwa is all over. Frank is here.
So I now know.
Taking chips and chicken.
I now know my opponents for 2016 is among them.
Okay, fair enough. Now
Chips
let's
and chicken, people are dying.
let's get into the somber news that we woke up to this morning, and that was the news of the death of George Saitoti, Orao Jode, two of their bodyguards. George Saitoti is, of course, the Minister of Internal Affairs in Kenya. It hit you a little bit, Frank.
It did.
It shocked you.
Yeah, for sure. And my condolences to the Kenyan government, to the family. It really humbled me. It's bad. It's bad. Someone to die of an accident, it's really bad. Death is death, by whatever cause. But I think that's what they call dying badly and paining people. The man woke up with his other colleague going to fundraise for the people who were waiting for them, only to be burnt in flames of a helicopter. It's really bad.
And is there any such thing as a bad death, especially as far as politicians are concerned, Angelo Izama?
About politicians. Really.
Christ said, let the dead bury the dead.
Right.
Wow.
What does that mean? Let the dead bury the dead, meaning what?
Meaning life is for the living.
Yeah.
No.
And that's, you agree with?
Yeah, Saitoti is not the first prominent man to die. Neither will he be the last. He
Actually,
has
I was thinking about this
Let life move
because
on.
yesterday was Heroes Day,
Right.
and there are many traditions around death. One of them is the one that honors those who essentially achieved. But I was wondering, how do nations define themselves by the actions of a few? It's a very, very steep bar, right?
It is.
And I'm not sure how I feel anymore about this whole issue of who's a hero and who is not. I think that there's just too much placed, even in the context of appreciating the sacrifices of a few. I think that what we celebrate every year are really people's visions of how the future through the death of others.
Yeah, Alice, when you think about this, the way it has, Professor Saitoti passed away along with his deputy minister, Orao Jode. Do you understand, does that put things in context for you? Why are you people trying to kill each other, you politicians, throwing barbs at each other? At the end of it all, someone might die like Saitoti died. And it just comes to an end with such an anticlimax.
Yeah, of course, it's very sad. I was personally really shocked at the news. But what got to my mind was just a basic thought. Professor George Saitoti is a very accomplished politician by any standards, a very rich man, and a very renowned personality. You can't just, in Kenya, you can mention him, and it resonates with Kenya, and even in the region. But that at the end of the day, you just cease to be. I think is a rude reminder to all of us in politics, those of us who are amassing wealth at the expense of drugs in our hospitals, at the expense of roads and our school system, at the end of the day, you will be gone. And you'll just be gone as an individual, very, very painfully.
Does it draw any parallels for you at all, Chris, as far as even incidents in Uganda are concerned or regionally?
Yeah, you see, what I learn from death normally is the moment of self-reflection.
Yeah.
It's not about who has died. The highest calling in life is service to people. Saitoti is a filthy rich man. One of his homes is in 5 acres. Even the one in Lavington, I think almost 3 acres. But Nairobi hosts the largest slum in Africa. How I wish he dedicated himself to reducing slum life in Nairobi. But most politicians, the allure of being rich, being known as powerful, takes you and then you are reduced to ashes in one morning. Unexpected.
Is that what you say?
I don't buy that idea. Yes, we're not here really to evaluate the life of Saitoti.
Yeah.
Perhaps we may not be so competent to know much about what he has accomplished for his country. Maybe.
But talking about politicians in general.
Yes.
Does it come a time when you need
but
to...
I think we also shouldn't advance a theory that accumulating riches, irrespective of how you've accumulated them, is immoral. That's the point
Not at all.
Oboro tends to bring up.
Not at all.
Yes.
I'm saying when you become wealthy, do not ignore the suffering of others. You can't be holding 300 acres of land when your next neighbor does not even have a meal for the next day. Is what I'm saying. There is a duty for your wealth.
But the contribution of Saitoti is well known, and Kenyans can tell you as Minister of Education. One thing for me,
does that entitle him to accumulate obscenely?
Well, I wouldn't really want to go into that debate that is unfounded and not backed by facts. Whether he accumulated his wealth obscenely, that's not for me.
For politicians,
But let me give you a simple point. Let me give you a simple point. That you remember how Kenyan politicians the other time they went up into flames.
Yeah.
The only thing I can remember about Saitoti, and which I remember I shared with the one elder in Kenya, the former MP, Gigi Kairuki.
Yeah.
When I met Gigi Kairuki, when I joined Parliament, I said, "Are you the Kairuki we were reading in our English book?" He said, "Yes." Said, "I was an MP since 1963. He said, you were Toto wa Museveni. How old are you?" Then I was very happy about interacting more with him. So he told me about the peaceful politicians Kenya had. Peaceful, the kind of people who can be arbiters, who can be impartial umpires in any hot argument. Saitoti ranked #1.
Are there any such politicians?
And Kalonzo Musyoka.
What about
maybe they are there.
Like
who?
who?
You have them, of course.
Like who?
Right from President Museveni, who has managed to hold this country together. No, let me tell you, he's managed to hold the country together.
Yeah.
You heck at him, and he just laughs at you. We have the vice president. So really, I think without quoting controversy,
the one who takes him in a parliamentary car when he's given another one.
Without quoting controversy, Alan, I think Saitoti was really Kenyans hold him with much high regard.
So then, Alan, if we draw the parallels, the way Frank is picking them up and saying our very best politicians, men of peace, President Museveni and the entire team, do you now reach a point where you think he could die like this any day? And we would have
but this is a constant thought, I imagine. It's a constant thought in all their minds.
We would go into chaos because the way we behave in Uganda is like we have 100 years with President Museveni. Have you thought about the possibility of him quitting any time, any day?
You see.
Yeah, let's hear Frank, and then I'd like you to come in, Angela.
You see, whatever we do, even if we behaved as philanthropies, even if we behaved as warmongers, nobody will influence the way he or she dies. Maybe you can influence the legacy you leave behind.
But you have to be aware that you
and
go.
As far as, of course, yes.
Okay,
and as far as President Museveni, what he has done is to influence his legacy. But the way he will die...
Does he have a legacy to... does he influence a legacy?
Your actions define your legacy.
Yeah. I don't know. First, this is 50 years of independence, and almost more than half of that is now under the NRM, under his leadership. One time I was speaking to Professor Ali Mazrui, and he said, we are very harsh on these people when they are alive, but history tends to be kinder to them. If you take away the attitudes of Museveni's opponents and those who compete with him for power, and you ask, what, and not who, what has happened during the 25 years, I think that, you know, he may have had singularly more influence than any other personality in Uganda's recent history.
Okay.
Now, we can talk about what that means, you know, and people can criticize here and there, but there are many things, and I can volunteer a positive one. For instance, my own grandmother, you know, was a woman of, I would say, a woman of substance, if you'd like. But I was told stories of how she used to ride the bicycles around the village as a teacher at a time when it was frowned upon for women to do these sorts of things. And, you know, she would sometimes try and drive her husband's car. Her daughters are now professionals working, and a lot of that happened post-1995. You know, Uganda is very strange. You know, we don't really, and, you know, Alice Alaso is here, but we don't have a feminist movement. There are many feminist organizations, but the position of women was state engineered. This equality thing, put in the constitution,
1.5 and all these
you know,
other
implemented through education. But, you know, growing up in this town in the early 80s, you could hardly see women in positions of office or influence.
Right. But
today, today, just walk out here. Women are taxi drivers, they are security guards, and of course they're secretary generals of political parties.
But I don't want to agree with Angelo that it is all about the NRM.
But why don't you give NRM credit where it's due?
No, I'm just saying it's not all about. So that means partly it is about.
NRM has been around for 26 years.
Yes, but I am also aware of women who started this thing well before the advent of the NRM. There were women in the LegCo. We had one of them from Teso, the old woman, Frances Akelo. We had girls' schools. Majority of the women you're talking about today who are at the very high levels, who are influencing, are not products of the NRM of the 25
But I'm saying there was
Okay,
a glass ceiling, Alan.
Yes. So
that was broken.
Legally. And
so it's not,
let me just
the notion
redirect
of the
this.
secretary,
Yeah.
you know, the secretary.
Was a typical and school teacher.
A secretary now.
But
now you have politicians like
Alan.
That was where, you know, the
What
ceiling
Angela
was.
said.
What does this cost my colleague Honorable Alaso to really give credit to the NRM, okay? For really deliberately putting in place affirmative programs to empower women, which go without no question.
Alice, what's the problem with that?
Even the region,
No,
which
Alan,
even the other regional
coming
countries.
out?
What is coming
Let me
out?
finish my point about it.
Yeah.
Which even other countries in the region have benchmarked.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair point. But what is
I
coming
think what is
out?
coming out in this debate is there are two ways to become great. Some people become great by doing good things. Others become great by being notorious or doing bad things. Here, I think what is coming out, indeed, President Museveni will be here, but more on the bad things.
Okay, now
so
let's
you
just
still
switch
be a
our
great
focus.
man by
Let's
doing
switch our
bad
focus.
things.
You know that's
Alice,
where.
let's switch our focus to the State of the Nation address and President Museveni's delivery of it. He said the other day, he gave a very optimistic picture of the way things are looking in the country. First of all, did you attend the address, and what did you think of his thought, of his speech?
Yes, I did attend the State of Nation address. It's one of those rituals you look forward in a parliamentary year all the time. But I don't think it was very optimistic. My word for it was that the State of Nation address was very apologetic. And that is what I got from the entire delivery. First of all, and evasive, if I have to pick it up and add another word. First of all, the president talked like a discussant, as if somebody had presented the State of Nation address and then he was discussing it. So he kept saying,
Are you talking about, isn't that down to style? Isn't that just sort of
no, that has
disregarding
not been,
the substance?
That has not been style. This particular State of Nation address seemed to have been very problematic for the president himself to make. I think it is based on the events of the past 1 year. Because the State of Nation address is basically what went on last year, because you do it every year. So you pick up from last year and build into the subsequent
And so you said he had nothing to talk about from the last
No.
year?
It seems that the last 1 year was very problematic, and the president was actually trying to be either apologetic for what happened last year or dodgy. That's what I
apologize about what and dodge what?
Well, look at the economy. He had to run away from the economy the last year and try to look for the economy the last 25 years, forgetting that every year in the last 25 years, he himself has been telling us
But should
about the economy.
should the last year, Chris, should the last year disregard the achievements of the last 25?
Then it would stop.
I don't know how you look at it, but I don't want to go into the things of what he said about education, about. I was only studying the person reading the State of the Nation address, and I realized that he looked very well aware of Uganda's problems. He knows each and everything, but he's a man who's not frightened by anything.
What does that mean?
He knows the agriculture is not doing well. He knows there are no jobs. He knows he can dismiss teachers.
So it's optimistic.
He knows, no, I'm telling you, he's aware that Uganda has all these problems. But in him, he has reached a certain way he knows that all this is happening, but none of you is capable of forcing me to do this. Can I make my point?
There, then?
He says,
Yes.
this is happening, I will do it when I want it. He looked a man who is not politically frightened that this low production...
He has no reason to fear.
This low production, let me make a point. This low production can lead to people suffering and therefore politically endangers me.
So it's basically you're saying President Museveni doesn't care about it.
He doesn't care about it.
So much.
And when I look at it, I saw a man who is looking beyond 2016. He's a man who's addicted to authority, and his authority is unchallengeable.
Okay,
so
we
all
return very
others were
shortly.
just clapping.
Hold your thought, Frank.
Okay.
Hold your thought as well. We return very shortly with a reaction from Frank. I'm sure he's itching to say something about that. According to Chris Obore, President Museveni doesn't care about this country. Is this true? You're watching The Fourth Estate on NTV.